Evening, everybody, and welcome to another live edition here on the Rock Pile. The Rock Pile tonight brings back the No Huddle podcast. We got a short group tonight. We got Coach DerCola on tonight. We got Nick from C-Bus. Coach Medicis had basketball. Coach Kramer had another obligation to go to tonight. We'll run the show one more time back in a couple weeks on December 29th, right after the holidays. We'll spend the duration of that show talking about the BCS semifinal games. We'll break both games down. We'll give our predictions. We'll give our final Parton Shots of the year. Hard to believe we're down to the final two shows, but it's been fun. These college shows have been fantastic. I can't thank the guys enough. So it's just three of us tonight. We don't know where we're going to go, but we can spend a little bit more time talking. I got a lot to get to today. We're going to preview and highlight some of the championship games, conference championship games. We're going to go through and see who the guys think is this year's coach of the year, the team of the year, the team that's been the most disappointed this year. I'm going to run buy or sell back. And then at the end, we'll give some predictions. We're not going to pick the semifinal games tonight. We'll pick them in 2 weeks. So let's bring Coach DerCola on. We'll bring Nick from C-Bus on. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Yeah. It's hard to believe we're down to the last two shows.
I know. Here we go. It doesn't feel like that long ago. We were talking about season preview and who's going to come out on top. And I think if we ran back the tape, I don't think any of us did a very good job on predicting that Final Four. That's for sure.
No, but I'll tell you what, guys. I did go back last night and see the predictions. I picked just about every game. I only missed one pick.
Oh, did you going into the you talking about for the championship games?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good, bro.
Yeah, I forget the game that I missed on. But Jake,
did you take
I was
Baylor
laughing
over OK State.
Yeah, I had Baylor.
Okay, yeah,
I had Louisiana.
I'm the only one that had Alabama.
Yep.
Yes, you did.
I did not have that one. But, well, guys, I want to start. Jake, you said Alabama. I want to start with that SEC title game. I don't think anybody, well, outside of you, Jake, that would have saw Alabama, and that was probably the Heisman moment for Bryce Young that probably gave him the Heisman Trophy last weekend. He was phenomenal, 421 yards, 3 touchdowns. But how about the wide receiver, Mr. Williams, 7 catches for 184 yards. C-Bus, I know you always say Ohio State is wide receiver you, but Alabama just seems like Mechie goes down for the rest of the season. Somebody steps up. Talk to us a little bit about that wide receiver core. What a day.
Yeah, I think if we want to rewind the tape, I couldn't. It was so hard to trust Georgia, and I ultimately trusted them, but because I hadn't seen Bama put together a complete game yet. But I felt like it was a phenomenal game plan by Alabama. The deep shot threat of Williams with Alabama and Young being able to roll out of the pocket. I think he's really shown over the last couple weeks. The game started to slow down for him a little bit. And I think those rollouts where he can extend the play and then take those deep shots and go over the top has been a pretty thing to watch. They really exposed. I thought they really exposed Georgia on the offensive side of the ball as well. I think our question amongst us has been, can Georgia score enough points? And I think not to knock any walk-ons, but if you have a preferred walk-on that's starting, it's awfully tough to think that you're a legit national title contender. And I think that it got exposed a little bit on Saturday. And, you also listen to Saban. Let's be honest, Alabama hasn't been underdogs in too many games since he's been there. And, he loved every single second of everybody picking Georgia. And that just was fodder for him to fuel that team. They were ready to go. They were the more motivated team, and they laid it on them from start to finish.
Jake, when you look at Bryce Young, and listen, I say this, you take Bryce Young off that team. I don't know how the backup quarterback is for Alabama, but it just seems like they roll in another quarterback. They have all these weapons on the outside. They have the run game. What's so special about Bryce Young this year in his first year at Alabama? What makes him the Heisman Trophy winner?
Well, I think what helped him was him sitting a year. He sat behind Mr. Jones last year and saw how they went through all that stuff. And I think he learned a lot just sitting in there, being in the room, seeing how a quarterback that's been in a room with Tua, Hurts, and everything, and it's just like a trickle-down effect. And it's almost they see how the next person does it. And granted, he was a 5-star recruit, one of the top rated passers in the country. So that definitely helps. And he's been coached his whole life now with all these coaches outside of football. But, with receivers, they're doing a great job of replacing one after another and just having talent there. And I think it helps that they're always in the title hunt. So everyone wants to go play with that. And they see Mr. Smith won in last year the Heisman Trophy. How can you not tell a receiver that, hey, you want a chance to win the Heisman Trophy? Come here. We've had one. So I think that helps tremendously.
Guys, some people actually thought that the way Alabama beat Georgia, that Georgia should have been out of the playoffs. Some people did say that, should the BCS have dropped Georgia out of there from one just because they looked horrible. And you know what? Kirby Smart's done a great job at Georgia. Kirby still can't beat Alabama. This was the year going in. Everybody said this Georgia defense is so good, and they still are good, I think. But sure, Kirby Smart just can't get over the hump and beat Nick Saban.
Yeah, I think it's you really, when you really start to look at Georgia's schedule and record and really look at who they've beaten, I think we could probably all three of us agree the SEC was overrated all year. Right, this was not one of their strong SEC conference, where you want to play anybody. The top 6 teams in the SEC could beat, no, it just wasn't that type of year. And I think, Georgia was able to use a really good defense to suffocate opposing offenses and really allow their offense to work on short fields and being able to kind of exploit that. I think, they finally ran up against a team that can match them athlete for athlete. I think what's going to be, what would have been interesting, I think would have been if Oklahoma State had found a way to win against Baylor, then what decision, does the committee make? Do they knock out Cincinnati? Do they put in Oklahoma State, or do they punish Georgia for not winning their conference and put all the conference winners in there and keep Cincy in there, right? I think that would have been a fascinating discussion and argument to see. But ultimately, I think it's awfully tough to argue with Oklahoma State's loss. It's probably tough to argue that Georgia doesn't belong in there, sitting there ready to play Michigan.
And guys, the Big Ten championship game, I think everybody, I believe Michigan was a double-digit favorite. They rushed for 211 yards and 4 touchdowns. Iowa was in it for a little while, and then Michigan, a little trickery, got the offense going. Jake, what'd you think of the Michigan win?
I think at first you could see they were playing a little bit uptight, but those trick plays helped them a lot to loosen up, and then they just kept going with confidence. Michigan's defense with those 2 ends, especially the one that was in the chance for the Heisman, they're just animals up front. And anytime you can win the battle up front, you have a chance to win a lot of games. And he just creates havoc back there. And it was, I think once they got the lead and sense, okay, we can start playing how we've been playing all year, you could start seeing things click. I think in the beginning they were kind of uptight just a little bit, just putting a little bit more pressure on them. But I was glad to see the offense coordinator, was it Getz, I think his name, came out with some trick plays that kind of loosened them up. Because that could have gone the other way. That they failed on those trick plays, they could have been going the other direction, going, here we go. We just came off the big win against Ohio State, and we have to win this game and put more pressure on them. But luckily, it worked out for them, and they ended up being a victory, and a huge victory at that.
See, Buzz, here's what I wish would happen. Mm-hmm. I wish that they would redo the Big Ten West and the East.
For sure.
Shuffle the teams up. Put Michigan or Ohio State on that other side. I don't even care if you put Penn State over there. Mix that West and the East up. How nice would it be? You get Ohio State, Michigan to play for the Big Ten championship, and you still potentially can have them at the end of the year. That Big Ten West was awful.
It's been awful. It's been awful. I mean, I look at it. I don't think they're ever going to move Ohio State and Michigan out of the same division, because I think they have that allure of wanting that to be, the winner of the East in that scenario. But I think you could easily move Michigan State and Penn State, to the west side to really try to balance and give it. Iowa's defense is legit. Iowa's defense is good. They got some players. Their linebackers are good, but they got nothing on offense. I mean, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, Michigan's defense is really, really good, but there's nothing there. And I think what I noticed pretty early on was Iowa's defense came out, and I thought, okay, they're ready to go. And then as soon as Iowa got the ball for 2 possessions, I went, okay, well, this isn't changing. They're not going to score, consistently enough. But I think what was interesting or stood out to me about that game is that Michigan's been able to follow their identity now. Every game that they've wanted, they've needed to win. Even within that Michigan State game, outside of some fluky things that Michigan State got hot that fourth quarter, every game has really been in their how they wish to play, right? Physical, upfront, defense, ground and pound. So I'll be fascinated to see. I know we're going to do a preview show here in a couple of weeks, but I'm really fascinated to see if that trend can continue. And I think it does. I think it travels, right? And I think that's there. But, you can just tell when a team can impose their will and their identity in a football game, and that's what they thrive in, it's awfully tough to take a team off, knock a team off like that.
I still say at some point, and maybe it'll be in that semifinal game, they're going to have to throw the ball, and that might be the freshman when JJ has to come in and throw the ball against Georgia. Going to be awfully hard to run it 30, 40 times and beat a really good Georgia team, but we'll see. Is there any other coach in the country right now that's won over a university and his players more than Luke Fickle? All these coaching changes, all these coaches, Brian
maybe
Kelly,
Marcus Freeman, because
other than Marcus Freeman,
right. Also a Luke Fickle disciple, right?
But see, Bus, Luke Fickle, though, this is what I was thinking. Would it have been different if he didn't get in the BCS, the Final Four? Would he have seriously looked at those other jobs? Or is he saying, you know what? I'm building something special here. We're going to the Big 12. There's going to be more money in the Big 12. I'm happy where I'm at. Why leave? Would it have been different if he wasn't in the 4?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think Luke's an old school coach. What you see, what you kind of get with him. I think I listened to his press conference. And I think that they were asking him questions about some of the coaching moves and things like that. And he's like, I honestly have no idea. I don't pay attention. Like I don't think he's blowing smoke. He really is singular focused. And everything that I know about Fickle from coaching here, and he's a local high school alum. Everything I know about him has been his family. While it's a large family, is the most important thing for him, and it's not just lip service. It's part of the reason that he has turned down offers in the past, because he does not really want to leave the state of Ohio, because that's where his roots are and that's where his family is. And I think he found the perfect situation at Cincinnati. He found a university that was going to support him. He found a way to get in his players. And then, like you said, Rock, everything's in front of him. They're going to move to the Big 12. They're going to get better competition. He's going to get more money. They're going to see the stadium start to improve, facilities start to improve. I truly think outside of the Ohio State gig, I really think it's going to be tough for him to leave Cincinnati. I really do. And he'll build it again. He might tear it down. They might take it 2 steps back. He's not going to run from that.
So, Nick, let me ask you this question. So I said this on the last show, and I don't know if there's any truth to it. The Ryan Day still keeps getting mentioned as a possibility. Not saying that Ryan Day is going to get the Bears job,
right? But
with Fields there, let's just play if he does get the Bears job. Mm-hmm. Would Ohio State take Luke Fickle back? Do you think that that's a job that Fickle would take?
I do. I honestly think it's the only job he would take in college football right now, outside of Cincinnati. I really believe that. I think the pull for his alma mater. I think the fact that he cut his teeth here in the year, we call it the lost year, the 6-6 year, where he stepped up and kind of took the reins. I think he would love a chance to right that. I think in his mind he felt like they didn't beat Michigan. I think he felt like maybe he just didn't live up to what he wanted to do. So I think he would itch at the chance. Like you said, it's a big hypothetical. I'll tell you right now, Ryan Day's not going to the NFL by any stretch of the imagination. But in that scenario, yes, I think Fickle's there.
Jake, I want to ask you about Desmond Ritter, because I still have the picture and the memory from last year. I think it was when Cincinnati lost to Georgia, and they played Georgia really well last year. Desmond Ritter was the only player on that Cincinnati team that stayed on the field. If you guys remember it, they showed him on the field. He was watching the ceremony. He's to me this year, I don't think he's had a great year. He hasn't had that Heisman year, but I think people are still sleeping on how good he actually is. I think he's had a pretty good year for Cincinnati. Not
Yeah,
the Heisman year, but he's had a good year.
And too, I mean, last year I think he surprised a lot of guys and had a better year. Where this year he had more expectation, so it's always harder to live up to someone setting the bar high for you and everything and living up to that. But he did a great job of lead. He was probably more of a leader this year than worried about his stats. He was more of a team guy that what's going to help us win. He could have probably gone out there and put them on their back and carried them, but could also lost them a game or two by doing something on his own. But relied on his running game, his defense, and said, play smart football. And was like, hey, let's get the win. Let's go undefeated and give ourselves a chance. And then just worried about his stats and everything. And that's a huge part of why, guys come back too. They see that team celebrating everything. And, he sees he probably would have been maybe a third round, maybe a fourth round. And hey, I'm going to make my stock go higher. And we have a lot of talent coming back and let's try going for it.
So, Nick, you were talking about Oklahoma State if they would have won that Big 12 title game, and I want to talk about that because Baylor, to me, I had picked Baylor in this game, but wouldn't have been disappointed to see Mike Gundy win and get a chance. I think the committee would have put Oklahoma State in as a Power 5 team. I think that argument would have been there. But
you think over Georgia, or do you think they put him in over Cincinnati?
I think they probably would have put him in over Cincinnati. I really do.
But I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I think it would have been a fascinating.
I think it would have been a good argument. But I'll tell you what, this Baylor team reminds me, I hate to say this, but they remind me of a Big Ten team this year. Physical up front, physical on the defensive side of the ball. I think their front four was really good. And that Oklahoma State team offensively this year wasn't the Mike Gundy offense that we've seen in the past. Everything was defense. C-Bus, you're going to get that defensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Thank you.
But I think the difference in that game, the Spencer Sanders, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, threw 4 interceptions. But what'd you guys think of that game? Baylor up front looked really good on both sides of the ball.
Go ahead, Jake.
I mean, it comes down to those, 8 plays inside the 2-yard line when you can't score. And that's, that's tough for an offense that you get shut out 8 times and you get no points. And that's just basically a mano. Who wants it more? Who's digging down deep? And you could see Baylor had that, hey, we got nothing to lose kind of. And maybe Oklahoma State was kind of looking like, oh, man, we got to win this. Putting a little bit more pressure on. But Baylor was just flying around. And even the kid that made that game-saving tackle, I want to say he was a walk-on too. And the coach there has done a great job since what's his name left for the NFL. And he just could continue on it. And who would have known when Art Briles was there that Baylor's known for defense instead of offense. So,
Jake, I want to ask you about, because I think it was Kirk Herbstreit that brought this up, the teams that are that spread offense team, and I'm going to go to the Ohio State too, because against Michigan, they had the ball in the red zone quite a bit and they settled for field goals. And Jake, the same thing with Oklahoma State, but Herbstreit was saying, I think it was Herbie, said these teams that are strictly spread offenses, when you get inside the 20, even inside the 10, it's tougher for those teams because they're not your traditional, maybe 2 tight ends. Is it any difference with that spread when you get inside the 20, even inside the 10? Do you change things up?
Yeah, it is. I mean, even at the high school level, my offense is mostly spread, and it's just compact. Your timing's off, even though you'll see more man-to-man, but you have the out of bounds all the way around you. Mm-hmm. And like they always say, the out of bounds is never lost the play when it comes to that. So it's just the area gets tighter. You'll start to see more guys. I guess you could say not so much blitz more, but, defensive line kind of have that mentality. All right, I don't want to get pushed back as much, especially with shotgun teams. And if you don't have really a true tight end or a fullback at times, and you go out there with 4 wide, it's very tough, especially if you don't have a running quarterback either. And so now you handcuff yourself more. What I see now, some schools, and Clemson kind of used to do it a little bit, is when they didn't have they didn't want to run Trevor, they brought in DJ to run that power. Okay, a big, powerful running quarterback that now you have to make it account for him. And now you're starting to see teams kind of have like a special package for that stuff. And heck, it's even gone into the NFL with some of those teams.
Great.
C-Bus, the ACC championship game, I was telling Jake before you got on, Sam Hartman of Wake is coming back for another year. Dave Clawson said 6 or 7 starters are coming back again for a 5th and 6th year. But Kenny Pickett in that ACC championship game played really well, threw for over 200 yards. Hartman, unfortunately, played the worst game of the season, threw 4 interceptions. What'd you think of the 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I thought it was, talk about another team where we see so much of Pitt, and it's, offensively they've been an aerial, they just attack teams through the air the majority of the season. But that team, when the defense needed to step up throughout the year, their defense is sneaky bend don't break good. And I thought they just overall just wore Wake down. I thought they were the more physical team. And I thought you could see as the game progressed, I think you could just see Wake was not used to that constant pounding. I think Pitt just had that advantage. I like what I see from Pickett. I think he's good. I got a chuckle out of the fact that, the NCAA can take 2 years to investigate, you name it. And this kid pulls off a fake slide, and they changed the rule in 4 days. I've never seen him move that fast in my life, and all of a sudden, well, we can't have that. Let's get rid of that. But no, I thought it was a fun game. I was rooting for both teams. I had nothing. I thought both teams were good stories there. I liked Narduzzi a lot. But I want to add something that Jake said about the spread offense that. And watching Ohio State run this quite a bit now over the last 7-8 years, the spread is fine. It's great. You get inside that 20-yard line, you have to be able to have a run game. And where Ohio State has excelled over the years has been everybody sees this spread and they think, oh, they throw the ball over the place, but it's always been predicated on the run game. And they spread it out, they get the guys out of the box, and they're able to gash. And I think when they get down into the red zone, just as Jake said, you lose that grass, and all of a sudden that box shrinks a little bit, and those lanes are just not as open because they're just not as afraid of letting these, receiver get behind them because, they only have 8 yards to cover. So it's definitely something. It's definitely something there that they need to, that all those teams I think are alarming. I do like the running quarterback situation. JT Barrett, when he was there at Ohio State, they were awfully tough down in the red zone because he just didn't know who you're supposed to tackle. Was it Barrett or was it Ezekiel Elliott with a read option, right? So, I think it's a fascinating thing to watch over the course of the next couple of years. We know there'll be wrinkles within that offense. Coaches are going to try to adjust to how to attack the red zone, so it's coming.
Guys, I picked Utah to beat Oregon big against C-Bus. When I watched the replay last night, you had, I think everybody had Oregon. Jake, yeah. I think you had Oregon.
No, I picked Utah because they.
Yeah, I think I might have been. Might have been on the island with Oregon just because I just couldn't imagine them getting punched in the mouth 2 games twice in 3 weeks or whatever it was. But man, we'll get into the preview a little bit later for Ohio State and Utah. But talk about a team that is just built on running the ball, stopping the run, and in the Pac-12. Good luck. If you can punch other teams in the mouth, that's not the conference. That's not the conference that's used to that. And I think they proved it again. They're just too physical and too dominant up front. And look at the ripple effect. Does anybody think Cristobal leaves if they don't run into Utah this year? If Utah doesn't play them as tough as they are, Oregon might be in the playoff. If not, they're heading to the Rose Bowl to play Ohio State. I don't think Cristobal is leaving at all. It's a big ramifications that they cause.
I'm so shocked that he left at that. I just look at Oregon as a better program overall than Miami.
Alma mater talks, though.
I know.
It does. It matters.
Jake, how about, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, how about the job Kyle Whittingham's done at Utah? This is a guy at Utah that has won consistently there. I think he flies under the radar, but he's happy there. A stat line for that game I thought was interesting. Oregon, I'm going back to the Chip Kelly days. They were always known for that spread offense, running the football. Here's a stat line. They had 29 carries for 74 yards. Utah rushed it 40 times in that game. When would you ever think Utah would be the more physical team than an Oregon team? I always thought Oregon had all these athletes. Let's play in space. They got slaughtered up front. They physically got beat up again twice, which I thought was an embarrassment for Oregon. To get beat physically twice like that to Utah, no improvement from that first game.
No, and I think Utah started off 0-3, I want to say too. And he turned that season around. I think they had a couple of deaths on the team too. So he did a great job of holding it together and getting those guys where they want. But, when you're physical, you can win a lot of football games.
And what in
that first game, being out physical with Oregon can almost say, hey, we're here. We don't care what you do. We're going to beat you up. And that's hard to prepare for, actually, because if you don't have those guys at your practice squad or anything close to that, that's hard to assimilate during practice. And here we go, game time.
And what an indictment to me on Cristobal, though, right? I mean, isn't that what Cristobal built Oregon on? Wasn't that what his whole thing was? Hey, we're going to be this new physical. I'm a former lineman.
I was to say, he's an O-line coach.
Right, you're right. This is what we do. We punch teams in the mouth. And then all of a sudden, you go and just your identity is absolutely taken from you by the same team in 4 weeks. That's crippling.
You know what I wonder, though? I wonder because, these players have social media.
Sure.
These players hear the rumors that, hey, my coach could be leaving. Joe Moorhead could be leaving. I mean, you would think that has to play into – I know the coaches would never say preparation, but if your mind is known that you're going to another program, are you really putting in as much time as you probably should into getting your team prepared?
Yeah.
I mean, they just looked completely unprepared against Utah in that game. So
Lamb to slaughter, man. It was bad. It was bad.
Guys,
with Moorhead leaving that quick and all that stuff, there had to be some stuff behind the scenes that was pretty bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you guys, a lot of coaches had good years this year. There were a lot of good teams. Luke Fickle, of course, had a good year. There's some coaches that unfortunately did not have a good year. I think we're expecting to have a good year. But Jake, who's a coach for you that I know there's a lot of them, but a coach, did you have one coach or two that stood out to you?
Well, I'm going to save your coach for your talk, so we all won't jump on that bandwagon. But, two that first one that comes to mind is, and I know I'm going to say his last name wrong, is the Dave from Baylor. Was it?
Dave Aranda.
Yeah. I think he did an excellent job. Once again, another team that was not ranked preseason. No one knew where he came from and where they finished and where this team wasn't. Actually, he got mentioned for some jobs out there, just the way he kept that program running. And also, I have to give it up to Nick Saban. Always reloading somehow, finding the right type of pieces for his programs. And everyone kind of, this is going to be their down year. They lost all that. They had a slip up. Everyone's predicting against, in that championship game. But he just keeps finding ways to win and everything and coming up with even new material to motivate his teams to keep on going.
C-Bus, how about you?
Yeah, so I had Aranda from Baylor, but I'll take another one off the radar we talked about a little bit. But how about Pat Narduzzi at Pitt? Somebody else finally won the ACC, not named Clemson. I thought for a team with very little expectations, former defensive-minded coach, I thought he really decided once he found, once he developed Pickett, he really opened up that offense a little bit, which I thought was always kind of his drawback, was he tried to play everything in a phone booth, which ideally that's what Pitt has to play to win. But I thought he did a great job of adjusting to the talent that he had on offense, keeping that defense, up there and winning big games, throughout the year, and then go on to the biggest stage. I think we all agreed it was kind of a coin flip game against Wake, but I felt like that's a strong run there for me. I was really impressed.
Well, I think both the names you guys said were fantastic. I mean, listen, you could say Dave Clawson, you could say Mel Tucker, you could say a lot of guys, Luke Fickle. I mean, come on, any team to go undefeated in any conference, even Pop Warner to go undefeated, I think it's impressive. But I'm going to go Homer here, Nick. I'm going to go Jim Harbaugh. I got to go Jim Harbaugh. I got to give him the credit.
That's why we left him to you.
Yeah,
I was going to say we left.
I got to give, but you know what? I'm not. And throw the records out. I mean, you could say this year the 12-1 first Big Ten title. This C-Bus, we've said this a lot. This is what he was brought to Michigan to do. This type of a season. This is where, when Urban Meyer was there, Ryan Day. Now, this is what Jim Harbaugh was brought into Michigan. But what I'm more impressed at, and we've talked about it, is I'm more impressed with the coaching staff. Mike Hart, the running back coach, I mean, he brought the youth in there. It just, to me, it just looks like it's a whole different type of coaching staff, a whole different type of results that they got. Now, we'll see next year if they can carry it over. They're going to be preseason, probably top 5 or 6. They got a good recruiting class coming in from today. I think they were ranked 8th the last I looked. So I'm going to go with Jim Harbaugh. But you know what? Dave Clawson, Luke Fickle. How about Lane Kiffin, too, at Ole Miss? Lane Kiffin, they came off a 5-5 season a year ago. They're 10-2 playing in a New Year's Six game.
Good call out.
And he's another one, too. I don't know if he was really rumored for some of those other jobs, but he stayed put. He's staying at Ole Miss. So how about team of the year, guys? A lot of good teams. C-Bus, who'd you think?
I took Cincinnati here. I think the fact that we're talking about a non-Power 5 in the playoff is truly incredible. And I think when you really factor in the from the scenario of we've been talking about it before the season started. We said this was the year. If it's going to happen, they're setting Cincinnati up. They're giving them a chance to get there. And so those expectations have been weighing on those kids and that program the entire offseason, and then as soon as the season started. And yes, was it perfect? Was it pretty all the time? No. Did we ride them about playing down to their competition? Absolutely. But when it all mattered, they found a way, to come on top, to look dominant when they needed to. The Notre Dame win, why I kind of shrugged it off early part of the year, it held up. Notre Dame did their job and made that win hold up. So yeah, I think, like you said, any team to go undefeated, incredible. And on top of that, a non-Power 5 to be sitting there as the 4 seed. Congratulations, you get to go play Alabama. But still, what an incredible run.
Jake, how about you?
I'm gonna go Pitt. Just like C-Bus said earlier, that winning the ACC other than Clemson, and Plunkett coming back for that 5th year, it made a huge difference. And even though they might have been somewhat the favorite, you still got to show up and play all those games. And the way Pitt plays those games sometimes, and sometimes they look ugly, but they got the job done. And, kudos that they won the ACC championship, and now they're in the Chick-Fil-A Bowl. So we'll see if they can finish it. But I definitely would say Pittsburgh.
So I had Cincinnati was my first one because I think, too, even the pressure of them coming in this year to win every game. I mean, again, they've lost, one game in 2 years? Last year, I think their only loss was to Georgia. They got a New Year's Six bowl game a year ago, and now they're going to get a shot to go play in a playoff. I also had Wake at 10-3. A year ago, they were 4-5 for the smallest Power 5 team in the country to have the year that they had. I picked them to go 10-2. And then Ole Miss, as I said, with Lane Kiffin, they were 5-5 a year ago to be 10-2 atop the SEC like that. But a lot of good teams this year, a lot of good storylines. I think this was one of the more funner years of college football. Every week we had something.
Yeah, I really felt like that COVID super year for some of those teams, I thought really paid off. Seeing some of those teams with more experience, that extra year, last year not counting eligibility, I really felt like you found more mature teams. And they weren't necessarily our usual suspects of the top 5 or 6 teams in college football. It was more of those middle tier teams. And I think that's why you saw a little bit more of the parity, right, throughout the season. Because I felt like you saw teams that now all of a sudden they've been there, they're battle tested, and they got another year. And I thought that actually made it that really made the season awfully entertaining.
So, you guys, I'm going to give you my biggest disappointment team first. I'm going to kick this off. I got a few different teams. I'm going to go with Florida. 6-6, firing Dan Mullins, who, again, Florida had a chance to beat Alabama. They were, I think, a play or two away from beating, obviously, a really good Alabama team. But Dan Mullins was the Florida program. I mean, when he got rehired to come back to Florida, this was, to me, it was like a Jim Harbaugh coming back home. Dan Mullins is a Florida Gators, through thick and thin. And to see the type of year and see his kids basically, they quit. They quit on him. I had Florida, and of course the Steve Sarkisian disaster this year. But I'm also going to go with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. It was an Iowa State team, I think, guys, was preseason top 10. They finished 7-5. I know that we've talked so highly of Matt Campbell, and I think rightfully so. I think he deserves it. But to me, a 7-5 Iowa State team that was picked preseason top 10, I don't think that's the type of finish that Matt Campbell wanted, Nick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good call. And I'm going to stay in the state of Florida and go to Miami. I thought they start out the season. This is supposed to be their year. They have a tough draw to start the season off. And then before you know it, they are right back to playing no defense, offense being non-existent. They have not been able to find their footing for over a decade now. And I think to highlight all that, put all that on the players and the coaches, and then you look at how they handled Manny Diaz and the Mario Cristobal situation, and it just tells me their problem is so much deeper than coaches. If you're gonna actively know that you're bringing in another coach, but you're refusing to do anything with your existing coach, and you're sending him out there on the recruiting trail as a lame duck. It's just a bush league move, and I thought Diaz handled that as gracefully as you possibly could. He was bit his tongue way more than I would have in that situation, and hey, look, I think Miami of Florida being is good for college football, but boy, Mario Cristobal's got his hands full. He really does.
And Manny Diaz, the new defensive coordinator at Penn State, he wasn't unemployed long. I think it's a good hire for Penn State.
Oh, I absolutely, and maybe he can help Coach Franklin in the in-game management, and maybe they might do something.
Jake, who was your biggest disappointment?
Well, my first one would have been Florida. Them having that, but other two that came off the top of my head was definitely LSU. They should have hopefully.
Yeah.
Everyone thought they would bounce back. They were in the top 16 coming back, but another huge one that comes off mine that might even be bigger than Florida almost is the UNC with Sam Howell being a Heisman Trophy candidate. Hey, this is their year. A lot of guys back, especially with the O-line. I know they missed out on receivers, but going 6-6 and having some close games, and even the way they finished the year, like losing to NC State the way they did, was just very, disappointing.
Guys, let's jump to buy and sell because we got a lot of games to pick. But I want to start with Jake. We'll start with you on this one. You buying or selling Brian Kelly's Southern accent at the basketball game?
When in Rome, right? What they say. He's got to get that Southern draw going to help him down there. I'm going to buy it. It might help him a little bit. What do they say? Bad press is good press for you. So they're still talking about him, and even his dance thing he did with that the quarterback on the thing. So he's definitely doing some things that he hasn't done. So we'll see if it helps him. Maybe he's trying to do some different things to help them, but I definitely think I like the hire for LSU.
C-Bus, you buying or selling?
Oh, sell. Maybe if he gave that speech 5 years from now, after he's been in Louisiana for a while, and I might be able to buy the fact that he's speaking with a little bit of Louisiana accent there. But man, 2 days into your tenure, and you want me to believe? I just, I think, what's been exposed with Kelly is, obviously he wasn't very likable. I think we all kind of knew that. Nobody thinks he's necessarily a likable coach. But I think it just goes to show us, just because somebody can, deliver a presidential address on a microphone on a press conference, what you see behind the curtain is the reality. And I don't think it's a bad hire by any stretch. I'm not saying that. I think he's a good football coach. He's won everywhere he goes. But that actual delivery, awful.
I'm selling it. You got to be yourself. You can't change who you are just because you're going to LSU. But I'll say this: I've never been a Brian Kelly fan. No matter where he's been, I've never pulled for him. X's and O's. I think he's going to win games at LSU. But I'll give him credit for one thing and one thing only. He came out and he said he feels he's accomplished everything he could have at Notre Dame. To pick that you want to go to the SEC and now compete against the gauntlet in the SEC week in and week out, I kind of give him credit. He could have probably had the USC job or maybe some of these other jobs. So I do give him credit for that. But like Lane Kiffin said, just come out and say you took the money.
Yeah.
At least
I
Lane
would
Kiffin's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just say you
I
wanted
would
the
have
payday.
respected that 1,000 times more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. These guys backed up the Brinks truck, so that's where I'm at.
C-Bus, I'll start with you. We already talked a little
Yeah.
bit about Mario Cristobal. You buying him jumping ship to go to Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying the move. I get it, the pull to the alma mater. I think what Jake said, right, and I think we've kind of alluded to it, even if you listen back to the last show. Something was not right behind the scenes at Oregon, and I think there was a lot of friction there. And I think the draw to go back home, the draw to try to turn that program around. I mean, let's be honest; these coaches have egos just like these players do. And he knows if he turns it around in Miami, right, where they've been the last 20 years, they're going to build him a statue. They'll name the stadium after him, whatever. You go out in Oregon and you go 10-1 or 11-2, or 11-1, whatever the case may be. They're going to look at you like a really good football coach, but you're not going to have that. You're not going to get that love that you're going to get going back home. So I'll buy it.
Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'll buy it for him. I think there was a stuff behind the scenes that, he didn't want to be out there because obviously, I mean, in my eyes, I just see the Oregon program just a higher statue than Miami. And Miami is going to take a while too. It's not like it's going to be an overnight fix. And the way they kind of treated Diaz a little bit going out, like hurry up, get it fixed, and all right, you're out. I mean, I know he's signed a huge contract, but still, it's not a great program to go into right now. It's gonna take him a while, but having roots down there, it's definitely going to help him with the recruiting trail. And it also helps too that Florida's down, Florida State's down, so it's whoever can get those guys down there that can turn that program around could win the state.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy all these coaches that want to come home. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He wanted to come home to the state of Florida. But what I'm confused at is Miami's going to invest now in what they're paying him. They obviously didn't pay Manny Diaz that. Now all of a sudden you read all these articles and say, well, Miami's going to spend all these monies on facilities. They don't have their own stadium. You got to drive like 20, 25 minutes. And as a college student, you want to drive 25 minutes to go watch a college football game after a few beers in you.
It's an expensive Uber, I'll tell you that.
Exactly. So I'm buying it. Good for him to come home, but I just all of a sudden Miami's now going to invest. Why not invest in the program years ago? It's almost like was Manny Diaz set up to fail. I don't know, but I'm going to buy it.
Felt like it.
Absolutely.
Well, that was a weird situation calling him back from Temple, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Jake, I'll start with you. You buying that Florida State head coach Mike Norvell just got a 1-year extension through 2024. So he's 8-13 in 2 years at Florida State. You buying or selling it?
I think I want to sell him. 2 years, I haven't seen too much, but I understand why that program did it to kind of show, hey, we plan on him being here. But I could see Florida State next year. If something doesn't go right, boom, they're cutting ties and they want to be first in the coaching market out there like some of these programs have done. But I think right now, if they made a move or didn't extend him, that I think people will be like, oh, here's the next program, no matter what. I think he has to have a great year to come for next year to come back and to keep it going. But I could see why the college extended him for that, just to show sign of good faith. Hey, we still believe in you, but I believe they're probably still looking out there. And who knows, with Dion stealing that recruit, hey, why not call the Dion up?
Nick, what do you think? You buying or selling it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, right? Good question, Rock. I think I'm buying it from the standpoint of I think you got to try to sell to recruits that this guy's going to be here. We trust him. We like what he's done. We understand it was a long turnaround. Similar to what we just said about Cristobal, right? We knew Florida State was not a quick fix, right? We knew they were where they were and where you want to take them. I haven't seen it yet, to be fair. And next year's really probably the time you're going to have two recruiting classes. They're going to be sophomores and juniors. It's going to be time to show that you got there. But, I tend to think Florida State's in the same boat as Miami from the standpoint of their facilities aren't good enough right now. They're behind. They haven't spent the money, and the fan support is non-existent right now. I think I'm buying the move. Buying that he's going to be there in 2 years. No.
I'm buying it for one reason. They have the youngest roster in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But if Dino Babers can last 6 years at Syracuse, Mike Norvell can last one more year at Florida State.
Fair enough.
Guys, he was only 38-20 at Memphis in 4 years. He was the hot guy, coming out. But I guess you can say his team didn't really quit on him this year.
Yeah.
I mean, some players quit this year on their teams. I don't think Florida State was one of them. But with the youngest roster in the entire country. But I'll tell you what, if he doesn't win next year, old Dion, there's no doubt in my mind that university is going to give Deion Sanders a call for that job. So we'll see. But I'm definitely going to buy it. Give him one more year. Guys, last one I want to just ask. Army-Navy. The game was last weekend. Some say that that's the American game, right? That's the game. I'm biased, Nick. I'm going to say Michigan-Ohio State's the best rivalry in college football. Are you guys buying that the Army-Navy is the best rivalry in college football, Nick?
Man, I'm selling it. I love the game. I watched the game. But from a aesthetic football game, from a actual what you watch on every other Saturday, and then you sit down and watch those two teams play, boy, they go at it, they sell out. But that's not necessarily modern day college football, I think, that we're watching. And I think that pulls away from me to try to put it at that, top notch. But I'll tell you what, the tradition, the patriotism that is steeped in that rivalry, in that game, if you can't get goosebumps listening to the anthem and the end of the game where the whole thing is who gets to sing last, right? It's the tradition is amazing, and it's pageantry that I have to watch, but I can't even take it over the Iron Bowl or some of those other games as far as a true college fan. Hey, I got to watch this aesthetically. This is going to be a big impacting game, but man, it's a blast.
Jake, how about you?
Oh boy, I'm kind of in the same boat. I got to sell it, but that the thing they do right is they do it the week after all the games.
Yep.
And it's hard to, pick one or the other who to root against almost. And you can't, after everything, even I've been up on the campus of Army before, and go Army, beat Navy. Everything is beat Navy afterwards, and which is huge. But just the game itself, they're two talented teams and they have won, but it's just like compared to the Michigan, Ohio's like you circle that on your calendar, you're that what's going on. It just doesn't live up. I don't even want to say that. It's just, I guess nothing beats having a rivalry on campus either, too, in that atmosphere. They have it at these pro, and they sell out and everything, and they're only show on. But I would be interested to see if they did put it up against the Ohio State Michigan game and have Oklahoma State and all these rivalry weeks. Where would it fall in? Especially if it's right in the middle of all these games.
Well, the Michigan-Ohio State game was the most watched college football game this year, and so was actually the Michigan State game was top 3, I think. But it's definitely America's game. You can't take anything away from it. Nick, you said everything that I would echo. But I'll say this: when you watch that game, here's what I will say: they actually threw the ball. Both teams came out throwing the football, which you wouldn't expect.
They did.
Which was unbelievable. But I'll tell you what, even being a college basketball fan, I've always said this: Michigan-Ohio State's the best rivalry in all of sports. But then I go back and I like North Carolina-Duke in college basketball is probably my second favorite rivalry. And then I'll just say this. You take any of those military school coaches, and I still think you can put them in any other school in the country, that they can adapt. They don't have to run the triple option. I think some of those guys can coach at any other school. It's tough to coach at a military academy like that. But they threw the ball, which was great. It's America's game. But to me, Nick, it's always going to be Michigan-Ohio State.
Yep.
And they got some of the best uniforms, too.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the helmets that Navy had on Saturday were slick.
All right, you guys, a lot of predictions here. Are you ready for them?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to start with the Alamo Bowl. Oregon at 10-3 against Brent Venables. No, he's not the head coach yet. Bob Stoops, big game. Bob Stoops is going to be the head coach. C-Bus, who you like?
Oh, is there a third option?
Joe Moorhead is coaching for Oregon. Joe
Oregon?
Moorhead is coaching this game.
I'm gonna take Oklahoma. I just think Oregon's in disarray for all the reasons that we already said here. I think they'll rally around Stoops. I think they're excited. I think they got Oklahoma's more talent, too much offense, probably enough defense. I'll take Oklahoma 34-20.
Jake?
I think I'm going to go Oklahoma just because of the fact of, their quarterback, I think, is a better quarterback than the Oregon kid, the Williams kid. And Stoops, I think they've already got over the shock factor where Oregon is still in the shock factor of, hey, our coach just left us. Moorhead's already out the door, worrying about his program. And I know Oregon just hired a new guy, but, I could definitely see it's a toss-up. But I'll go Oregon winning by – or not Oregon, Oklahoma winning by 7.
I like Oklahoma big.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon's 14th, Oklahoma's 16th. I think Oregon's completely I don't think they even belong in this bowl game. I bet you half these kids probably don't even want to play in this game. I think Oklahoma's going to be fired up to play this game. I like them big, and I'm still surprised at the Joe Moorhead going to Akron. Just it doesn't make any sense to me. I know
Thibodeau's not playing, is he?
No, he's not playing.
He already said he's out too, right? So
yep,
when I took Oklahoma by 14, let me take them by 20.
So, Nick, I'll start with you on this one, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. This should be a good game. Pittsburgh 11-2 against Michigan State at 10-2. Who you like?
Pickett is out. I believe he said he's out for the game. So I think that balances things to a degree. I think, Michigan State likes to play in a phone booth. They love to run the rock, but they really struggle through the air. They struggle giving up the pass plays. I think Pitt will find a way to move the ball through the air. I think their defense is good enough to slow Walker down. I think Mel Tucker's been a great story at Michigan State. I think those kids are going to be ready to play. I think Pitt's going to be ready to play, though, too, right? They're not normally there. So I'll take Pitt.
You heard that? I didn't hear that yet.
I thought they said while it hasn't been official, I thought everything that I've heard said that he's leaning. It's a very strong lean that he's not playing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm going to take Michigan State. I was going to pick Pitt,
I'm taking Pitt even if Pickett doesn't play. I just think they got enough offense, especially vertically. Didn't their kid win the Blitnikoff? The kid from Pitt.
I don't know if he did.
I think he was I'm not sure.
I think he won it because the whole big thing was the kid from Alabama, Williams, didn't win it, which was asinine. But neither here nor there. Yeah, I'll take Pitt. I'll take Pitt in a close one.
Jake, how about you?
Well, if Pickett doesn't play, I'm taking Michigan State because I think that's a huge step, the huge gap to fill for that backup quarterback and who that is. But if Pickett does play, I'll take Pittsburgh. So
I'm going to take Michigan State even if Pickett plays, only because I think Kenneth Walker is going to come out with a statement. I think he should have been a Heisman finalist. I think he should have been there for the award ceremony. I think they're going to run the football. I think they're going to pound him 30, 40 times a game. They don't have the offense throwing the ball with the quarterback. So if it goes quarterback to quarterback, obviously pick it if he plays. But something just tells me I like Michigan State. I'm going to stick with the Big Ten in that game.
Well, does he even play in that game? The running back, you think?
Yeah, I think
he's
Walker,
playing.
I think Walker said he wants to play.
Okay. Because I know he would be like the first running back off the board, wouldn't he?
I would think so. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on him.
Yeah.
But maybe as time creeps up here, we'll see. All right, Jake, the Gator Bowl, Texas A&M at 8-4 against Wake.
Oh, I'm gonna go Wake Forest. I think that ACC championship game was a little bit of wake up call, and with all these guys saying they're coming back, I think they're gonna build off of these extra weeks of practice and everything, and I could see them, having that mindset going in that. And I think the Texas A&M kid entered the transfer portal too, didn't he?
Yes, the quarterback is in the portal.
So that, right there too, they lost their top quarterback down there onto their backup. And with Wake Forest, hey, this could be a statement game and help, them have a great year.
Nick, how about you?
We didn't mention A&M as a disappointment, but they disappointed again, right? I mean, every year Jimbo Fisher, I think is one of the most overrated coaches in college football. But yeah, I'm with you. Give me Wake. I think with those kids coming back, I think they got enough offense to wear teams down. The SEC speed is going to be tough for them. It's going to be a physical game. It's going to be a shootout. I don't think they're slowing A&M down just because I think Wake's defense is definitely a sieve. But
yeah, and Speller too is out too for that game. I think too.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think A&M's missing too many key pieces. I like Clausen and the boys to pull this one out. Let's call.
I'm going with Wake.
I was gonna say you could have called that before we even talked.
No, I'm going to go with Wake. But Nick, I agree with you. I think Fisher. They've had a top 5 recruiting class every year.
Yeah.
They beat Alabama this year. And again, another year, a 3-4 loss Texas A&M team again. So I'm with you. I think he's been a big disappointment there. So I'm going to go with Wake. I think they're going to score a lot of points. Jake, I think with a lot of those guys coming back, Sam Hartman played his worst game in the ACC championship. So we'll see, but he should be ready to go. I think one of the best games of the bowl season, guys, the Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma State against Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, I can't get that video out of my head of how pumped up his players were. I'm going to give you my pick first. I think Notre Dame hammers them. Because I think they're going to come out motivated to play for Marcus Freeman. And with Oklahoma State, the defensive coordinator now going to Ohio State, we'll see what Oklahoma State team shows up on offense. But I'm going to go Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame big. Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I got Notre Dame too. I got Notre Dame 28-17 for a lot of the reasons you said. I think Notre Dame is just too jazzed up. I think they're ticked at the way that Kelly left them. I think they feel slighted. I think obviously we all know that the love for Freeman and the passion for him being the head coach is real. Notre Dame is without who they're without. They said they're without the safety, without Hamilton and Williams, right? So They're without two key pieces there, which I think will keep the game a little bit closer. I'm not a big fan of Notre Dame's offense. I don't think Jack Cohn's worth a darn, to be honest with you. So I got this game probably tighter in the fourth quarter than either you or I probably would think. But I think Notre Dame scores late, too much defense. Oklahoma State's offense just isn't there. So I got Notre Dame finding a way to win this one, 28-17.
Jake, how about you?
I'm going to take Notre Dame. I think they're riding that high. And I think you're going to see, with Tommy Rees kind of not having Chip Kelly over top of him saying you can't do something. I think he's going to Tommy's going to come up with some different types of stuff on offense, that stuff we're not used to seeing in Notre Dame. And with Oklahoma State losing their defensive coordinator and you not knowing exactly what you're going to see in a bowl game, I think that's going to help Notre Dame a lot. But granted, though, Oklahoma State's defense is pretty tough. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame winning by a field goal at the end.
And how about Marcus Freeman's first regular season game next year in Columbus against the Buckeyes?
I know.
So
crazy.
We'll see a tough start for him. All right, guys, the Citrus Bowl. Iowa at 10-3 against a 9-3, I think, a really good Kentucky team. Jake, who you like?
I got to go with Kentucky. I like what Stoops is doing there. And one of the things I heard today was there's more talk about Kentucky football than Kentucky basketball almost right now. So that I think the culture's kind of changing a little bit there. But, I think he's doing great things there. And I could see him keep going. So I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I like Kentucky big actually in this one. I just don't think Iowa, while I love Iowa's defense, they can't score. Kentucky has enough weapons on offense. And their defense isn't half bad, to be honest with you. So I got Kentucky by 14-17.
Yeah, I'm with
Won't
you.
Be close.
I think Kentucky big. If Iowa had just a little bit of offense, I would pick Iowa in this one, and I would love to see Kirk Ferentz win this game. But I'm with you guys. I think the speed, I think the talent of Kentucky is going to be too much. And to talk Kentucky football over basketball, Stoops has done a hell of a job. I like him big in that one. All right, the Rose Bowl, Nick.
Whew.
Utah, Ohio State. Who you got?
So, and I say this with all seriousness, it's up in the air right now if Olave and Wilson are playing. They still haven't announced, and they won't be the only two that I think are teetering on if they're playing or if they're not. And I think it's a big factor, right? It's going to be very interesting for Ohio State because they're going to play almost a replication of the game that they played, team-wise that they played against Michigan. They're going to play a team that loves to smash mouth, run the ball down your throat, and they love to stop the run. If Stroud has his weapons, if he has Olave and Wilson, I'm not sure Utah is that great against the pass, and I feel like Ohio State potentially could get out to an early lead and take Utah out of their comfort zone a little bit, which is what they did for the majority of Ohio State did for the majority of the season. If Olave and Wilson do not play, which I think is probably pretty likely from what I'm hearing down here, I'm gonna take Utah 27-20 in this game. It's a terrible matchup for Ohio State, guys. I'm telling you, this is everything that is wrong with Ohio State is exactly what. Yeah, you can write it down.
Wow.
It's everything that is wrong with Ohio State right now is what Utah does well. And don't get me wrong, I understand they don't have the athletes that Michigan has, but Utah up front is tough. Ohio State, they've been exposed, and until I see that they can adjust it, I'm not sure. This could very much be an Oregon situation where Ohio State, they lose to Michigan, then they turn around and lose to Utah. I really see it.
Jake?
I'm shocked at that. I'm going Ohio State. I think they're somewhat pissed off. I think Day does a great job of getting his guys to bounce back. Yes, it's going to hurt if those receivers don't play, but who's the third receiver that caught that one game? Caught what, 15 catches?
Yeah. It's Jigba's going to be. Yeah.
I could see. I mean, I think it might be close in the beginning, but I could definitely see Ohio State pull away at the end. I said they win by, let's go 14 points.
I got another one for you, Rock, too. 68% of the tickets purchased have been from the state of Utah. They are traveling. Ohio State fans are not feeling this game. I'm not sure.
Utah's closer to Pasadena.
Yeah, but it's Ohio State, dude. They travel everywhere all the time. They just played the Rose Bowl 3 years ago, and they bought up 72% of the ticket allotment. It's Ohio State is. I'm telling you, this is a terrible, terrible matchup for them.
Because Day's on his way out.
Well, I went back and forth on this. I agree with both you guys on what you're saying. Utah's physical.
And they got the juice, man. Utah's never been here.
If Utah has the pressure to get the Stroud at quarterback. I mean, Michigan had the two defensive ends that got in the backfield.
Yep.
That's the only thing I worry about. I mean, speed-wise, I just don't know if Utah is going to be able to keep up with their speed. I like the Buckeyes. I think Ohio State's going to come back. I think they're going to put some points up. Because, again, I don't know how good that secondary is. And if they don't get to Stroud, I think it's a long game for Utah if they can't get to him.
Yeah, if Ohio State's able to score, if Ohio State's able to keep scoring and keep the pressure on Utah's offense to keep running the ball, absolutely. But that's my worry. If Wilson and Olave are in the game, I would easily flip my pick to Ohio State probably by 7. But I think that's a really big ask for Stroud to find a way to do that. But I'll make my pick if those two guys play.
I think the other one of the best bowl games, this could be a tough game to pick because I like them both.
Oh, yeah.
Number 7 Baylor against number 8 Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Nick, who you like?
Boy, I went back and forth.
This is a tough game to pick.
It's so tough. I have Ole Miss 31-28 in this game. I don't know what Baylor's going to do at quarterback. I know they started the kid in the Big 12 championship game who played phenomenal. What started out 15 for 15 or whatever he started out 21 for 21. I don't know, some crazy. And side note there, guys, did you know that intentional grounding doesn't count as an incompletion? So I was watching that game in the first half, and they're talking about Baylor's quarterback was 21 for 21. And if you remember in that first half, they had that really questionable intentional grounding call versus fumble call. And they're like, we don't know what we're going to call it. And they end up calling intentional grounding and call not fumble. And they end up does not count as incompletion, which I thought was quirky. But no, I just think Ole Miss, too physical, too fast. I think Kiffin's boys will be ready to play. I think Dave Aranda's boys are going to be ready to play. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out game. I'm really, really looking forward to this one. I think it's a great way to wrap up New Year's, right? You got Ohio State, Utah, rolls right into the Sugar Bowl to end up New Year's Day. But I'll take Ole Miss 31-28, but I think it's going to be a blast.
Jake?
Defense or offense? Which one's going to show up? That's what it's come down to. And there's no talk about the was it Karras? He's definitely playing it, isn't he?
Matt Corral's playing.
Yes. Yeah, he's playing.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Ole Miss, the offense. I just think they're high power and
indoors on turf.
Exactly, indoors on turf. No wind, no weather. But I mean, I think it's going to be close in the beginning, but I think just that the tempo of Ole Miss is just going to wear down Baylor a little bit. And I think you're going to probably see some more running with the quarterback and not so much throwing. So I think he will have a big day with his feet and getting out of the pocket.
This is going to be tough for me because I really have went back and forth with this pick. I love Lane Kiffin. Obviously, he's one of my favorite coaches, and I give Matt Corral credit when they asked him, "Are you going to play in this bowl game? Or are you going to pull out and get ready for the draft?" He says, "I never once thought about back. I'm playing in this game." But they struggled against, and I know Alabama's in the playoff, but they struggled against Bama physically. They got beat up. I think Baylor's physicality is going to get to Ole Miss. I think they're going to find a way to slow down Lane Kiffin's offense. I'm pulling for Lane. I want him to win this game, but I'm going to go Baylor. I think Baylor's going to be more physical, and I think they'll slow this thing down. So I'll go with Baylor. Close game. I think it's one of the best bowl games, if not the best bowl game of the New Year's Six. So I'm going to go Baylor in a really close game.
If Baylor gets a couple turnovers on a short field and helps that offense out, that puts them, that gives them a steady advantage, which is what they did to Oklahoma State in that first half, right? And they really buoyed their offense to keep them in it.
Guys, real quick before we go to the Parton Shots, the FCS first semifinal game, 12-1 James Madison against 12-1 North Dakota State. Nick, who you got?
Oh man, give me the Bison. Give me North Dakota State all day. They're always there. No reason to think they won't be there again.
Jake?
I want to go with the upset because I just watched James Madison beat Montana on the thing.
Yeah.
But I think when you've been there enough times and those guys just been through that, it's almost another game they're expected to be there. Even though Madison's usually right there in the Final Four too, I'm got to go with the ones that always win it. Got to go with the North.
I'm going James Madison. I think James Madison beats them this year. I think they're the better team, but this should be a really good game too, guys, in the FCS. The other FCS semifinal, Montana State at 11-2 against 11-3 South Dakota State. Jake, who you got?
Jackrabbits.
Yeah, I was going to say Jackrabbits. When you listen to Pat McAfee, that's all he talks about.
Yeah.
So I'll go with the Jackrabbits.
Nick?
Do we know where this game is? Is it a neutral site? Because it's in the semis?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't know where they're playing this one at.
Okay. Because that would be crazy to watch. Either play that one in Montana or in South Dakota in December would be awfully wild. I'm gonna take South Dakota State. I think partly for the Pat McAfee thing and partly because I watched them maybe about 5 minutes on my TV this year and liked what I saw. So
I'm gonna go Montana State.
Well, of course.
Montana's always in there. Montana State's always in there. I'm going to go James Madison against Montana State for the FCS championship.
Must-see TV right there.
Must-see TV. You can't miss it. All right, guys, let's go to the Parton Shots, and then, again, we'll run this thing back in a couple weeks where we'll just break down the semifinal games, and we'll do our picks then. So let's C-Bus, I'll give you the opportunity first.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna attack a Michigan alumni. I sat down to watch the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and I thought it was a great tribute to Hutchinson and to Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I thought they did a great job of video packaging, and you get to them on stage, and Desmond Howard decides to make the comment and to poke fun at Ohio State's offensive line in front of the entire New York Athletic Club on national TV for a postseason award ceremony. I got no problem with the nature of the rivalry. I think, everybody knows me on here, knows that I love the back and forth. There's a time and place for all of that. And I felt like it was an absolute disrespectful shot to take at Ohio State and at CJ Stroud. That kid is a freshman who played his butt off, who exceeded expectations the entire year. And got grief from everybody from the local media to the national media as the season was going on. And for Desmond to take a shot like that on national television on an award ceremony stage with him right there, I thought was just an absolute abomination and extremely disappointed that he would take that avenue and then not back it down and not apologize for it. I thought was a terrible double down. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Jake, what do you got?
I'm going to go with, can you imagine if our playoff was a 12-team playoff? I know we sent this in our group text, and hopefully it comes up. And it might not on being alone. But, with Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame versus Pitt, Baylor versus Michigan State, Ohio State versus Utah, just to be the opening games with the other four waiting on those teams. I mean, that'd be tremendous. And you would probably see a lot more guys too, not, saying, oh, I'm sitting out to get ready for the NFL draft. Just open it to 12 teams, even if you have the automatic bid for the Power 5 teams. But I could only, looking at that bracket, kind of think of like a little bit of March Madness almost, and how hyped that gets. And now if they could do that in college football, and I know it's an extra games or two for them, but just the atmosphere would be around that, and it'd be tremendous because we'd be talking about the 13th team to get in. But, looking at that schedule that it could have been, would have been amazing. And Merry Christmas too.
Guys, I'm going to go Deion Sanders. I'm going with Jackson State. 11-1 will get a chance to play in the Celebration Bowl, and I don't think too many people have really seen this team play because they're not on TV. But I think they're going to be must-see TV in this Celebration Bowl against South Carolina State. I think Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders, 3,000 yards passing, 29 touchdowns. Deion was the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year, which goes to the top coach in the FCS. And, oh, by the way, today, I'm sure everybody saw it. Deion got the #1 recruit in the country to turn down Florida State and come to Jackson State. That's right, Deion Sanders. And next year, we just talked about on the show, if you didn't hear it, make sure to tune in. If Mike Norvell struggles at Florida State next year, Deion Sanders is your next head coach at Florida State. But all this critique and criticism that Deion Sanders can't be a head coach, I think Deion proved everybody wrong this year about the year he had at Jackson State. So 11-1, turn into the Celebration Bowl this week. I think they hammer South Carolina State. So let's bring everybody back on here. Let's see if I can do this, though. What happened? There we go. Well, you guys, we'll do it again after Christmas on the 29th. We'll break the final four down. We'll give our final picks, final show. Hopefully we can get Coach Medicis on and Coach Kramer, get the whole crew on for one last show. But I appreciate it, guys, and Merry Christmas to you both.
Thanks, Rock.
Always
Appreciate
fun.
you guys.
Yep.
All right, man. Have a good weekend. So that's awesome. It was only the three of us, but another great show, another great college football here, No Huddle podcast. I want to make sure I give the reminder, too, the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch will move to Sunday mornings. The first episode will be January 2nd. We'll still keep the 9 to 11 time slot, but that'll be the first show of the new year. We'll run this back one more time for the fall season. We'll run it back on December 29th. So we'll run it back. We'll talk about the two semifinal games. Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Cincinnati. We'll see who the guys like in both those games, and we'll see who the guys like to win the College Football National Championship. So on behalf of myself and the crew tonight, I appreciate everybody tuning in. The Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Merry Christmas, everybody.